out the motherfucking pack.
Right out
But
the
niggas don't know
pass.
how to act.
Wow. Hello, and welcome back to the first post-draft video. Man, what a couple days, man. I feel like I got some goddamn sensory overload, or whatever you call it. The draft was amazing. So many exciting picks and situations I didn't see coming. I hope y'all enjoyed the dozen mock drafts, all the videos talking about the players and the situations and everything. Because now it's time to make a dozen videos after the fact. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm not going to waste y'all's time. The draft was great. And let's start with the NFC South because I think this has the most to talk about. But I'm not going to start with the Falcons and Michael Penix. I'm going to start with the team that I think had the most slept on draft, and that's the Buccaneers, man. Let's get right into it. I'm excited, man. First pick, Buccaneers took Graham Barton at number 26. I thought that Graham Barton was going to go exactly in this range. I wasn't sure where. I thought my Seahawks could have traded right about to this pick, and you traded back and took Graham Barton, but the Buccaneers took him. And, there was a fall. Let me say it like this: the edge rushers all went in quick succession of one another, and all the cornerbacks fell, right? And all the cornerbacks fell in part because six quarterbacks went in the top 12. I don't know if that's unprecedented or not, but that's what happened, and it caused all the cornerbacks to slide. So at pick number 26, the Bucks had some options. They had Kool-Aid, they had Cooper DeJean. I know Nate Wiggins was still on the board, so I figured, right, because the Buccaneers, they need corner. I know the fans are saying that they got some guys, but the guys they got outside of Jamel Dean are not Nate Wiggins, Cooper DeJean, or Kool-Aid, right? So that's my contingent. I don't think Graham Barton's a bad pick. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good pick. That's why I gave it a B plus. I'll get into the grading scale in a little bit. I did this all last year where I grade each pick individually. I add them up, I take the average, and I give the team a grade overall based on all their picks. But Graham Barton, like I said, he's a very good player. I believe he was the best offensive lineman left available. So that's good, right? Now, like I said, improving the offensive line, I'm not going to fault that. But if it was me, I'm probably taking Nate Wiggins with this pick, to be honest. Okay, that's just my opinion. I think they need a lot of help in the secondary, but Graham Barton, it's a good pick. 57, you take Chris Braswell, edge rusher out of Alabama. Once Shaq Barrett left, I figured they were going to take an edge rusher in the first two picks, certainly. I thought it could have been first round if, Jared Verse was still there, but it wasn't. Chris Braswell at 57, it's good value. Chris Braswell, who's in that range the entire time between 50 and 60, so it's good value. I think you got Yaya Diaby last year. You got Kalijah Kancey last season. You're starting to really build up that defensive line with guys who all have potential. You've already seen it from Diaby and Kalijah Kancey. And if Braswell, if he comes in and produces 4.5, 5 sacks year one, we're really talking about something special here for Tampa. Reason it's a B plus, not higher. I mean, I still would have liked to see a corner here. Chris Braswell at 57. It's a good pick. It's just not a great pick in mine. There wasn't anything special about it. You know what I mean? So very good pick though, nonetheless. Number 89, we see Tyke Smith go off the board, DB from Georgia. I like this pick. I love this pick actually because it does address their cornerback need, even if he's not a traditional corner. He is more of a safety, but he plays nickelback, and I think that's what he's going to play for the Buccaneers in a pinch. They already have some guys there, but I think Tyke Smith, he gives you depth certainly. He gives you versatility, and long term, he'll probably be a starting safety for you once Jordan Whitehead's contract is up. So I love the pick from Tampa. This is their first pick addressing their secondary. I think it's good value for a guy in Tyke Smith who can do a lot of things for you, very versatile. So this was their best pick so far, in my opinion. Next up, though, we got Jalen McMillan, and I'll tell you what these letterings mean. So a green letter means it was their best pick of the draft. A red means it was their worst pick, sorry, and a yellow pick would mean it was their steal of the draft. I actually have McMillan as their best pick and the steal of the draft. I was pretty certain McMillan was going to go in the second round. I don't know why. It was a little bit above his range, but I think this is a little bit below his range. I think McMillan fell for some reason, and the Buccaneers snagged him up. I think McMillan, and I understand that Trey Palmer's solid, right? Trey Palmer had a really decent rookie year, but I don't see him as a guy that's really out there 24/7. I think McMillan is a guy you can put out in any package in the slot and watch him go to work. And when you put him in an offense that already has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Cade Otton and Rashad White, right? And you just let McMillan go against a lot of times a safety, a linebacker from time to time, it's a recipe for disaster for defenses. I think he is going to excel with the Bucks. I think Baker's going to love him, and I think Jalen McMillan could sneakily have one of the best rookie seasons next season if he stays healthy. So I'm gonna give this an A, man. It's an amazing pick by the Buccaneers. Honestly, I could have given it an A plus. Now I'm talking myself into it a little bit more, but it was a great pick nonetheless, and they're steal of the draft in my opinion. Never mind, I lied. I forgot about I forgot they got Bucky Irving. 125. This was their steal of draft. Bucky Irving, honestly, was my favorite running back in the class. I'm not saying he's the objective best. I still think guys like Blake Corum, Jonathan Brooks maybe have a little bit more, but honestly, man, Bucky Irving, I love him so much. He's so explosive. He's so athletic. He makes guys miss in space. He's just electric when the ball with the ball in his hands. And to get him at 125, this is a fourth round pick. To get potentially, right, the best running back in the draft in the fourth round, it has to get an A. The only thing holding this back is because they already got a good young running back who plays a little bit of the similar style. I thought the Bucks were going to take a running back. I just didn't think it would be a guy like Bucky Irving. I thought it'd be a guy like Audric Estime, Jalen Wright, Jonathan Brooks, you know what I mean? Because Bucky Irving and Rashad White are a little bit similar, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Pair them both up in the backfield, play them at the same time, put Rashad White in the slot. It gives you a lot of options, especially depth. I think Bucky Irving's going to do a lot in his rookie season. I'd like to see him get excess of 120, 125 touches as a rookie, and I think he's going to produce. So I gave this an A. They're steal of the draft. Man, back to back great picks, three straight in a row. Great picks to the Buccaneers. Next up, we got Elijah Klein, offensive lineman out of UTEP. Why did I have this as a well? It's their worst pick because it's not bad. Look, it's a B. They're investing in their offensive line again. They're double dipping. But the problem is, especially for the fans, right? Because this is not just my opinion, right? Because especially for these individual team needs and the intricacies, I don't know as much about the Bucks as, for example, a Buccaneers fan would. So I really looked through the fan pages for each of these picks to see what the fans were thinking about, what they wanted. With this pick, it was more so just like, okay, we're taking a shot on the guy, right? But we didn't draft a single corner. So that's where my opinion, this kind of was a little bit annoying, I'd say, for the fans. You didn't draft a single corner. I still gave this a B, though, because I do like the idea of just taking a shot on the guy to potentially hit on an offensive lineman late in the draft. But still, no corner did leave the fans a little bit annoyed. But then you got Devin Culp near the end of the seventh round, was the fastest 40 time, I believe, for a tight end. Um, a little undersized, but he's still a good run blocker, which is surprising. So he has a lot of potential. I could definitely see him making the roster as a special teamer, and then who knows if he could develop, obviously, teammate of Jalen McMillan and also Cade Otton, I believe. So three Huskies in between the tight end and receivers. So, yeah, I still like the pick, to get a guy like Devin Culp in the seventh round, I think is really good value. So a great draft. Honestly, a great draft by the Buccaneers. And I haven't heard anybody talking about this now, to be fair. I don't think I've watched a single, post draft video talking about who teams picked and whatnot. But man, I don't think they made a bad pick. I think every pick they made, I understand it. Graham Barton, Chris Braswell to build the trenches, explosive weapons like McMillan and Bucky Irving on the offense, a Tyke Smith to address your biggest need probably in the secondary. I understood every pick and I liked every pick. So I gave him a 6.35. You can see that's the average of all the scores. And I could have kept it at a B plus, but I decided to round up. I decided to round up to an A minus because it was just that good of a draft. And I don't know, when I look back and I talk about the best drafts at the end, this will probably be up there in the top 10 at least, maybe even top 5. Who knows? Next up, we got the Falcons. Let me sit up in my chair a little bit, okay? I've talked to a lot of Falcons fans. I have spent many, many texts on Snapchat discussing this draft. Let's go. with the most shocking pick of my life. Think about that. Of my life, the Falcons selected Michael Penix at number 8. My live reaction to this was crazy. I had to keep double checking because I thought they traded the pick to somebody else who took Michael Penix, but no, they took Michael Penix. And I was completely stunned. I was speechless for a second, but then I started recording myself yapping about the pick. I could spend an entire 12, 15-minute video talking about this pick. I'll try and wrap it up in 3 or 4 minutes. Let me start with the negatives, right? Because you see, I gave it a B minus. So at the end of the day, I do think it was a positive move, but there are a lot of negatives here. Let me start with the negatives, right? You're signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. It's not going to be actually be 4 years, but you paid him $100 million guaranteed, basically meaning for the first 2 years of Kirk Cousins' deal, he has to be your quarterback because if he's not, you're wasting $50 million, right, per season. So you have a quarterback already for 2 years. You don't use a pick right in the top 8, right? Because when you sign Kirk Cousins, the whole idea is, wow, we finally have a quarterback. Time to build this roster up and go compete for a Super Bowl. That's what I thought they were going to do this draft. And they spent a number 8 overall pick on a guy who, if everything goes right, think about that. If everything goes according to plan, right, there's no way Michael Penix plays year 1, right? So you spend the number 8 overall pick on a guy who will not contribute to the team, okay? And you think about the other guys you could have had your pick of any defensive player in the entire draft class, and they definitely could have used them, okay? So those are the negatives. I don't think there are any negatives with the player. The only thing being his age, because nobody thought a team was going to draft Michael Penix and have him sit for a year or two. Certainly not me. So those are the negatives. Now let's get into the positives. The player. I think Michael Penix is a great prospect. I think he was the 4th best quarterback in this class, but even I, a massive Michael Penix fan who was so happy he got drafted at number 8 overall, was not expecting him to go this high. I had a mid first round grade on him, which means I understand, for example, I had Jaden Daniels as a number 10 overall player in the draft, but I understood the Commanders taking him at number 2. So I understand a team like the Falcons taking a guy that I may have a mid round grade on higher than expected. What I did not at all, I even had Michael Penix mocked to the Falcons before they signed Kirk Cousins, but I did not expect them to sign a quarterback to a long-term expensive deal and in that same offseason draft his replacement. That's shocking to me. Some more ways I think this is a good pick though, right? Kirk Cousins is 36, okay? Kirk Cousins has never been a mobile quarterback. And Kirk Cousins is also coming off a severe Achilles injury, okay? We have no idea how Kirk Cousins is going to look in Atlanta. He was the staple of consistency in Minnesota. He put together a lot of really good years, even some great years, sneakily. Okay. But we don't know how he's going to look. Okay. The Falcons with this pick are essentially hedging their bets, whereas to say, even if Kirk Cousins isn't that guy, we basically have Kirk Cousins 2.0, the best pocket passer in the draft class, waiting behind him. So at any point, if Kirk Cousins goes down with an injury, starts to rapidly decline, we can plug in his replacement and not see a drop off at quarterback. That's what I believe the thought was, to basically ensure that no matter what happens for the foreseeable future and even beyond then, we're going to have good quarterback play in Atlanta. Because it's been, what, 4, 5 years since the Falcons could really say they had a good quarterback. Now they have 2. Was it what everybody was thinking was going to happen? No. Is there a lot of reasons to criticize this pick? Absolutely. But in my opinion, I see the vision. I understand why they did it, and I think it is going to work out in the long term. It's impossible to say now. It's impossible. A lot of people are taking their sides. Most people are calling this one of the worst picks ever. They have their reasons. I can't defend this pick from those reasons. It's just simply facts. However, if the Falcons are right, they will have good to great quarterback play for a decade. Nobody could criticize the pick then. Everybody said the Jordan Love pick was terrible. This is a different situation, but it paid out for the Packers. Okay. So we just have to wait and see. And that's going to be tough. That's going to be very difficult to do for years, right? Because that's when we're really going to be able to evaluate this pick. But it's a massive gamble by the Falcons. Next up, we got Rook Ororo. We got from Clemson defensive tackle. I didn't like this pick. I thought it was their worst pick of the draft. Let me tell you why. When they let Jeff Okudah walk in free agency, they did not have a solution at boundary corner opposite to AJ Terrell. Clark Phillips played well, but he's very undersized. I think Clark Phillips is a nickel cornerback in the NFL. Maybe in a pinch, he could guard a shorter receiver on the outside, but they needed a boundary corner. Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid McKinstry were sitting right there. The Falcons traded up to get this pick, and they drafted a guy who, according to most people, would have been there at the end of the second round. A lot of people didn't have this guy in their top 60 prospects. So you trade up, you give up draft capital to get a guy that's not what you need and also probably would have been there to start with. Not a good decision on a lot of fronts. Not saying the player's bad, but I don't think he was worth this high of a pick. I don't think he was the best player available. I don't even think Johnny Newton was, I don't even think he was the best player available at his position. So, unfortunately, right, a lot of things I don't like about this pick, right? So I had to give it a D. Only reason it's not a D minus or an F is because defensive line was a need for the Falcons. Okay, so I acknowledge that, but not a good start certainly to the draft. But they did redeem themselves a little bit. Braylon Trice at 74. I gave this their best pick and their steal. Braylon Trice, according to a lot of people, was a second round talent. At times, I even saw him going in the first round. He played a great season last season at Washington. Teammate of Michael Penix, obviously. But, I think a lot of people would not have expected Braylon Trice to fall out of the first two rounds, which he did. He did fall, and the Falcons came and swooped him up. I acknowledge that. That was their best pick. They needed an edge rusher at some point. Everybody thought they were going to do it with the number 8 pick, but they addressed that at 74 and still got a very good player. Probably the best edge rusher available, maybe even the best player available at 74. So you can't fault the Falcons for that. That was their best pick. That was their most redeeming pick of the draft, right? Next, we got Brandon Dorlus, double dipping in defensive tackle when you need a cornerback. I just don't like it. I believe TJ Tampa is available. This is not the best pick in my opinion. But obviously, Brandon Dorlus at 109 makes a lot more sense than Ruka Ororo at 35. So I gave it a B instead of a D. But again, just passing up on cornerback when you already took a defensive tackle, I don't know. You could tell, right, that Raheem Morris, new head coach, really wants to invest and build the trenches on the defensive line, but you also need a complete defense to be able to win. I went too far. Next up, we got J.D. Bertrand, linebacker from Notre Dame. I like this pick. I don't think the Falcons have a strong group of guys at linebacker. I think Bertrand could come in instantly and compete and maybe even win a starting job. So if he does, that would be great value for a 4th-round pick. So again, another good pick by the Falcons. Their second best one, probably a guy who has potential to contribute year one. Then we got Jase McClellan, and honestly, man, yeah, you just knew the Falcons were going to draft a running back because why the fuck not? But man, the amount of talented undrafted free agents that are going to be sitting out there right now at running back, and you're telling me you drafted Jase McClellan at 186. Nothing against, look, no disrespect to Jase McClellan, but there are probably some undrafted guys out there right now that I would think are better than Jase McClellan. I don't know if Jase McClellan would have been drafted if not for the Falcons. So I gave it a D+, man. I really don't like this pick. And again, it's similar to Michael Penix. If everything goes right, there's no way this guy contributes year one. What's the best case scenario? He gets 30 touches, 40 touches. If other guys get hurt, maybe. I don't get it, right? So I give it a D+. You have other needs. Running back, again, not a need. Casey Washington, I expect them to take a wide receiver at some point. I believe he was a slot from Illinois. But again, not the best wide receiver available in my opinion. Just not a good back-to-back set of picks in my opinion for the Falcons. A couple offensive guys that will not contribute much. And then their last pick, I believe, Zion Luge from Georgia, their 3rd defensive tackle of the draft. I don't agree with the selection the position of guys. They took 3 defensive tackles when your best defensive player is a defensive tackle. They took running back when they didn't need to. Their number 8 overall pick was a guy that won't play. It's a lot of questionable picks, man. And the good, unfortunately, does not outweigh the bad for me. I gave it a 4.88. I could have rounded up to a B minus, and I did because it was so close. But honestly, if we're being honest with so the grade is lower than it says it is. It could have easily been a C plus in my opinion. And it's hard when you have what is that 8 picks to have 8 picks and be closer to a C plus. That's pretty disappointing, man. They did not do what a lot of people are. Oh, I forgot to fill out this thing. They had 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 3 defensive linemen, a linebacker, 4 defensive linemen. Sorry, 4 defensive linemen, a linebacker. And the thing about this, right, is that for a team, right, that's looking to compete for a Super Bowl, that's the hope, that's the goal in Atlanta right now. Be honest with me. How many of these guys are going to contribute year one? Maybe Rook, probably Braylon Trice, and maybe Bertrand. So you're telling me for a team that's looking to contribute, or sorry, that's looking to make a Super Bowl, you only drafted 3 out of 8 guys that are going to play year one. That's tough, man. That's tough to sell to the fan base, right? That you're actually going all in. It doesn't feel like they're going all in, right? That's just, and I'm sure that's a slap in the face to the fans. So, not a great draft by the Falcons. Next up, though, we got the Panthers, and they shook it up. They traded up 1 spot, right, to get their guy Xavier Legette. Is he better than A.D. Mitchell? Is he better than Ladd McConkey? I don't know. Did the Panthers think so? Absolutely. That's all that matters. I gave it an A. I like the fact they moved up 1 spot because if it turns out Xavier Legette is that guy, guess what? Now you have a 5th-year option because he's a first rounder. So I really like that from the Panthers. I thought it was a savvy move to move up 1 spot and get Legette. Look, he's a good player, right? He has a DK body type, ridiculous deep threat. Is just he has superstar potential. And you can't say that about some of these other guys, right? So I love the pick by the Panthers at 32. 46, you take Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas. I think running back was a need. Chuba Hubbard's been there for a while. I feel like if he was going to break out, he was going to do it already. Hopefully, with the improvements to the offensive line, we will see the best version of him. Jonathan Brooks, though, here's my problem with it. Tore his ACL last season. Will probably miss time this season. I doubt he's going to play the preseason. He probably won't play the first week or 2, 3, 4, who knows, of the season because of his injury he suffered late last season at college football. So if you're going to draft a running back, right? If you're going to draft a running back at 46, too, he was the first running back off the board. I would like it to be a guy with no injury history. It's that could play a full season. So it's unfair, right? It's not fair that Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL. But if I'm critiquing a pick of all the running backs to select, you took the guy coming off an ACL tear. I don't like it. Okay. I'm happy Jonathan Brooks is the first running back draft. I'm happy he got drafted so high. But if I'm to criticize this pick and be honest with each other, I don't love it. I don't love it at high as it was. I think there were some other players available, certainly. So that's my opinion. Next up, we got Trevin Wallace, linebacker out of Kentucky. The fans wanted Peyton Wilson, linebacker at NC State. Trevin Wallace, though, I think he's good, man. I think the fans are just being a little biased because North Carolina, NC State. But Trevin Wallace, he's a good player out of Kentucky. Can fly around the field, good against the run, can get after the quarterback as well. So I think he's there. It is my opinion that if you're a garbage team, right, like the Panthers, the Patriots, and you have a young quarterback, every pick should start out with the idea to do something to improve the offense. I don't care if the Panthers have the worst defense in the NFL next year by a mile. If they can do something to get that offense top 16, top 14, top 12, they should do that instead. That's just my philosophy, right? Because I'd rather have Bryce Young be as successful as possible and then figure out, because you're not winning regardless, right? Might as well try and maximize the potential of Bryce Young. Not saying Trevin Wallace is a bad pick, but would I have gone offense with this pick? Certainly. So I gave it a B plus because he's a good player at good value, but still I think offense was the right way to go here. Next, we got Ja'Tavion Sanders. This is amazing because I literally had them taking Jatavian Sanders in the second round, and they got him in the fourth round. If they would have drafted him at pick number 46, I probably would have given this an A, to be honest. So to get him at 101 is an absolute A plus and the steal of the draft. Absolutely. One of the steal. I mean, it's an absolute steal, man. An amazing vertical threat, contested catch guy. It just, you give Bryce two amazing weapons, man. Xavier Legette and Jatavian Sanders. And if Jonathan Brooks hits, you have your new number one running back, right? So I loved what the Panthers did offensively in this draft. Now, moving back to defensive player, they needed cornerback because they lost Dante Jackson in the trade to the Steelers. So you take Cha Smith Wade, right? A lot of good things to like. A lot of things to like. He won the defensive MVP, I think, at the Senior Bowl. He had 2 picks, right? So only thing holding him back is he does not have the measurables. He's undersized. He's a little small frame. He's not fast, right? So he doesn't really test well. He doesn't have all the measurables, but he plays, he plays a lot bigger. He plays a lot faster. All that stuff, right? So on paper, probably gets overlooked by a lot of teams, probably why he didn't get drafted so high. But on that field, it seems to be a different story. So I like the fact that they take a shot on a guy like that. Who knows? Maybe he is one of those rare guys that is able to play even though he's undersized. Next up, we got Jaden Crumedy, defensive tackle at Mississippi State. This is basically just like, okay, why are we not drafting an offensive player here? Taking a shot on a guy, a defensive tackle in the late 6th round when you could just draft an offensive player, a weapon for Bryce Young, something, an offensive lineman. They didn't draft a single offensive lineman in this class, which I don't like. So I would have much preferred if they just took a shot on somebody here, Jaheim Bell, Brendan Rice, something, right? Rather than Jaden Crumedy out of Mississippi State. But it's also a 6th round pick, so I can't criticize it too heavily. Then you got Michael Barrett out of Michigan. Great college linebacker, did a lot of things really well, played at a very high level in a very good system, but he's just a little undersized. Maybe he makes the team as a special teams player, but honestly, I do not think he's going to make the roster, so I did not give this pick a grade. Looking at it as a whole, you could see 2 pass catchers, a running back, 2 linebackers, defensive linemen, and a DB. Not that many guys, but if their goal was to make Bryce Young's job easier, I think they accomplished that, which was incredibly important. So I gave them a 6.33. I didn't give it, it was the grade that the calculator popped out. And I decided to round up to an A minus, right below the Buccaneers. But I think both these teams did what they wanted to do, made their offenses much more explosive, and hit on a couple guys late that nobody was expecting. Lastly, we got the Saints, and Saints did some interesting things. Let's get right into it, man. Talisi, let me see. Okay, let me tell you. Okay, I forgot to add the shit to it. Talisi Fuaga was their best pick. He was their first overall pick, and it was a boring pick, right? But some of the Saints fans were fucking retarded, respectfully. They were talking about, why didn't we take a quarterback? All the quarterbacks were gone. They were talking about, why didn't we take no, it was just stupid, right? The Saints fans, it's like they were fucking drunk, weren't even paying attention to what was going on. Talisi Fuaga was the best pick they could have made. J.C. Latham was off the board. Olu Fashanu was off the board. Fuaga was the best tackle available, and they took him. I've had him mocked there the entire time, so I gave this pick an A plus because I couldn't think of anything better that they could have done. And if I can't think of anything better, then it's an A plus. So shout out to the Saints, knocked it out the park with their first pick, and then they trade up. Did they trade up? I think they did. I think they move up to take Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round because he was falling and falling and falling. So this was their steal of the draft, undeniably, right? So I gave it an A. Only reason it's not an A plus is because if you asked me to give you a single team in the NFL that probably didn't need corner, it's probably the Saints. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, not old, still great. Paulson Adebo coming off a monster season, dominant season. Alante Taylor has like 30 passes defended in like 34 games. So they have an amazing young group of cornerbacks. I'm assuming with this pick, you're hoping Kool-Aid can replace Paulson Adebo or Alante Taylor so you don't have to pay one of those guys. I understand that. But man, Saints probably got the most stacked cornerback room in the NFL now, and it's probably not close, to be honest. So, man, Kool-Aid is going to go to somewhere where he could be CB4. That's insane to think about. But it's amazing value by the Saints. They stole Kool-Aid at number 41, and it's a great pick. Next, we got Spencer Rattler at 150. You know, a lot of Saints fans were happy with this pick, but I remember them. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, sorry. You knew the mic was going to die. I remember the Saints drafting Jake Haener last season. I think it was in the 6th round, right? And, you know, they weren't happy with that pick. But now they draft a guy in the 5th round. I don't think Spencer Rattler is very good, to be honest with you. But I also gave this a D plus because I think there's a little bit of a chance that maybe he could turn into something, right? But at the end of the day, I don't really think so. I think they're going to go from drafting a guy in the 6th round, Spencer Rattler this year in the 5th round, maybe next year they spend a 4th round pick on a guy. I just don't think it's going to pan out. So they took a guy that's not going to contribute. Had some other players on the board. I gave it a D plus. Next we got Bub Means though, out of Pitt, wide receiver. I expect them to take a wide receiver with their 2nd round pick, but obviously Kool-Aid kind of threw a wrench into those plans. So Bub Means he's a big body, not like Keon Coleman size, but he's larger than average frame, deep threat, yards per catch is ridiculous. So he stretches the field and he just gives them another weapon. They drafted a guy like A.T. Perry last season. And I think Bub Means is just going to be another one of these guys where he comes in right away. And A.T. Perry had some really good games as a rookie. And I expect Bub Means to do the same. I expect him to make the roster. And I do think they're going to find ways to get him on the field. So I gave this an A minus because I expect them to take wide receiver. And that they took a pretty good guy at good value too, 170. Jaylan Ford absolutely could be their steal of the draft. I didn't know. Honestly, I thought Jaylan Ford was just a 3rd round guy. And the only reason he was going to go in the 3rd round is because they're just, linebacker is not that valuable anymore, like in terms of draft capital you spend on one. But man, for him to fall this far, 175 is just insane. I would have bet money this guy would have went in the top 100, and 175 is amazing value for the Saints. He gets to learn from Demario Davis. Saints fans, this is an amazing thing. You should be absolutely overjoyed with this selection. Jaylan Ford is a beast at Texas. Next, they got Christian Boyd, defensive tackle at Northern Iowa. They had to take defensive line eventually, so I don't mind this at all. Number 199, you address all your other needs, draft a guy who has potential to rush the passer from the interior defensive line. And then the last pick, Josiah Izerum. He's a former defensive tackle, converted to offensive tackle. I doubt he makes the roster. So that's going to be it for the Saints draft. Taking a look overall, 2 offensive linemen, a defensive lineman, 1 DB, linebacker, receiver, and Spencer Rattler. So, man, they knocked it out of the park, man. Honestly, the only thing holding them back is a Spencer Rattler pick. So you could certainly make an argument that they actually had the best draft in the NFC South, but my hate for Spencer Rattler is holding them back. So here's the overall grades, right? You got the Buccaneers with a 6.35. You got the Panthers and Saints actually tied with a 6.33. And then you got the Falcons down there. You got the Falcons with a 4.88. And it's tough to see them because coming into the draft, Falcons were the best team on paper. Now you got the Buccaneers coming up. You got the Saints with some really good picks. The Falcons, what they certainly did not do this draft is separate themselves from the rest of the NFC South, which is concerning, massively concerning. But that's going to be it for this video, man. The first of 8 in 8 days. I'm going to upload one every single day. So thanks for watching, man. Subscribe if you're new. Who do you think had the best draft in the NFC South? Let me know. And, man, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out. But niggas don't know how to act.